Well, hello. At long last, here we are back online with the Sober Atheist podcast with the long delayed episode 31. And before I go into the title of that episode and Michael's great idea, and Michael's going to be kicking this one off, he had a wonderful idea about what we should be doing with this episode. We pushed some other stuff out. I've got to explain that I was going through more health problems these last 6 months. I had some very uh, severe back things that cannot be addressed through surgery. And with a lot of debate and a lot of pushing and pulling and various medications and stuff, uh, my doctors sent me back to my neurosurgeon, who's a genius, who came up with a treatment plan that they're going to execute. And they just executed 2 weeks ago a series of injections that are going to go through a lot of other stuff regarding injections and, eventually zapping some tissue in my back. The long and short of it is I'm feeling a hell of a lot better, and I was able to get back to doing this. And Michael's been very supportive. You're in great health, right, Michael? You beat the demon, right?
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, my body, my age is certainly catching up with me a little bit, but
Well,
ultimately, I'm still kicking and
I'm not
still
exactly
going. You
the
know,
sprightly young fellow I was 50 years ago either. So we're going with that.
yeah.
And now that I've explained why it took us 6 months to get this episode out, that's hopefully that's not going to happen again. We're at episode 31, and you know, uh, this is a bit of a self assessment. Okay,
Right.
uh, it's a self assessment after 30 episodes, and we want to talk about what we're doing here and what our purpose is and what our general direction is once again. And I think it was an excellent idea that Michael came up with. And, what did we say we were going to do in episode 1 when we introduced this thing? And are we doing it? And perhaps what new goals and insights have we developed as we set out, since we set out to do this in early 2024? Where do we go down the road with this thing? And are we providing uh, a useful set of discussions to our fellow atheists in the sober world? So we'll let Michael take it from there. What are we going to talk about today, Michael?
Well, I was concerned about just making it clear why we're doing this and what our intentions are. We started out with a goal of instilling a sense of hope with being sober and being an atheist at the same time. And I mean, it goes back to what most people experience in recovery. The standard procedure in recovery in this country, especially, is either AA or NA. And both of those programs make it pretty clear that you really have to have a belief in God, which they call a higher power or whatever they want to call it, but it's still ultimately a faith in God. And in order to get clean and sober, you have to have that faith, that belief, because you ultimately are depending on that. And I just wanted to make it clear that that isn't true. You don't have to do that. You don't have to believe in God in order to get clean and sober. And that's what we were trying to do, is express that sense of hope that you can get and stay clean and sober without a belief in God. So being an atheist in recovery is not a hopeless end. It's a hopeful beginning. of a life of sobriety and a life of abstinence without any faith in God. And because we're trained for through a lot of a lot of those programs train us to come to the conclusion that we can only do it their way. And I just wanted to make it very clear that you don't have to, that you can depend on ourselves instead of a higher power, and that it works. I mean, over the last 2 years when we've been doing this, I've been to many secular recovery meetings online, and just proof every time that there's hundreds of people out there that are clean and sober without believing in God. And that's a simple little statement that I really wanted to make clear to people, and like I said, to give people a sense of hope that you can stay clean and sober without having to go through that process, that traditional faith-based program. That's the bottom line for me. I mean, that's really what I want to make sure that people understand and know that at least that's where I'm coming from. That
Well, yeah, that is. I take it a little. I'm a little bit more explicit about taking it a step further. I don't need anybody's guide or anybody's list or anybody's preconceived notions that are codified in a set of alternative steps. I've never figured out why people who are rational, who are capable of thinking for themselves, need that. Now, a lot of people need it, and we can't say it doesn't work if you do need it. But at least for this hard headed atheist, I wasn't having any of that.
right,
And I'm not going to go to these conventions and play games with that stuff anymore. Okay, we've got. I I think maybe we've just got our little corner here in the sober world, and I think we've developed enough of a listenership. In some cases, a lot more people listen than they watch on YouTube. Uh, but we've developed a core of people who seem to find what we have to say useful. And that does not involve us telling you what to do. We're honest about ourselves, which is I think being honest about
mm,
ourselves
mm,
is one of the things that's propelled us forward all these years.
right,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, if I don't drop dead between now and January the 3rd, 2027, I'm going to have 40 years of doing this without people on my shoulder pushing me out along the way. Um, have we got that message across? That as long as you're honest and as long as you're sober, you don't need any of that other stuff. I mean, it's not mandatory, right?
yeah,
Have we
yeah,
been explicit in our episodes about that position?
yeah. I think that honesty is definitely, yeah, a big part of it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're finding a path for ourselves. Oh boy, this gets them going. This gets those old program people really going. They love this shit. Even some of the secular ones. We're finding a path for ourselves on our own terms, not somebody else's terms, right? We don't need any of those guides or books or structures. At least I don't, right? Now, I think we've gotten enough feedback to know that we're not alone in this, right, Michael?
oh yeah. I mean, we see it every week. We go to meetings and Zoom meetings online, and we see the evidence, the clear evidence of this working all the time. So yeah, we get positive reinforcement for it every day.
Right. But when we say this working, I think that's a little too amorphous for some people, because when we say this working, we're saying, well, this worked for me. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
This lack of structure, this lack of instruction, uh, that led us to find a path for ourselves on our terms and not someone else's. That's the point I just tried to get. It blew my mind when I went to that first conference of secular people out in Santa Monica in 2014. I can't believe it's been 12 years. It's been, boy, it's been 12 years. And the time is really running, right? On us. I think our TikTok is getting faster, Michael. Have you
It
noticed that?
is. It
Our,
is. Yeah.
our TikTok is getting a little bit faster.
That's a
Uh,
scientific fact. That's been proven. So.
yeah. Well, standing there and listening to people grapple with programs that really don't mean anything to the atheist,
Mm.
because the atheist says not only to himself, many atheists would say to himself or herself and everyone else that this reliance on these outside forces is absolutely not necessary for me to proceed in sobriety today. Just not necessary. I mean, gosh, I'm I'm an extreme left winger, and I know that you're of the leftist persuasion yourself. But independence, freedom, and self-reliance is not the sole property of people on the right. Okay, all right. Uh, I think we've done very good, very good work for ourselves, relying on ourselves, with the caveat that along the way, we've received help from others. We don't want to take others out of the equation and say that we're these, lonely atheists on the mountaintop, sort of figuring things out, and we've never had any feedback from anyone else. That's not so. The friendship, the feedback, the understanding we've had from others has been important. I know it's been important to you. You talk about it all the time. The people that have helped you along the way, um, you know, our but our blessings that we've received in recovery by not destroying ourselves, by not drinking or using for all of this time, these blessings come from within, not from without. Uh, these blessings, gosh, I hate using that word. It's really fucking ridiculous for me to be using the word blessings.
Well, I think
These,
if I throw in here that I think more in terms of making right decisions.
mm-hmm,
That's the blessings are a result of making correct decisions.
or more correct decisions.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
that we don't make mistakes
yeah, yeah,
in recovery. I'm living proof that you can make all kinds of
yeah,
mistakes in recovery.
yeah,
But I mean, drinking has not been one of the mistakes I made. All right.
yeah.
And from that fact,
Or it's my
uh,
favorite mistake for you.
oh man, there's a lot of favorite mistakes. When I was, I mean, you can have favorite mistakes, and there's songs about that. My
Oh
favorite
yeah,
mistake, right? You can make all kinds of favorite mistakes, drinking or not drinking. But my favorite mistakes when I was drinking were profoundly stupid sometimes, and not at all in my own best interest.
lucky to have survived, man.
And lucky to have survived all of that.
Yeah,
But this idea that the good things that we've gotten from sobriety are coming from someplace else other than ourselves is fucking ridiculous. It's absurd. And people seem to have that sense that the great spirit is looking out for them, right? People want to have a feeling that the Great Spirit is looking out for them.
I don't understand. I've never understood the need for that. That as an explanation, I doesn't. I don't get it. Why? It's not necessary. It's so unnecessary.
Right. And, part of our self examination here is, have we been getting that message across?
Hmm.
Which sort of loops back to your favorite word, hope.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, we are not alone. We are within ourselves in our right minds. Okay. Uh, but if we are within ourselves in our right minds, we may actually find ourselves in situations like I know you have, and like I know I have, where we've got someone in our lives so incredibly important that we literally can't live without them, right? So we're not lonely in that sense. We managed to develop. Look, in my case, I was 57 years old before I really got this. I really understood it. Now I'm 77. I'm very happily partnered for these last 20 years. I never thought that would happen in my life, to be happy and partnered at the same time.
Hmm.
But all of that was a result of, in my case, slow incremental changes that allowed me to get to the point where I could have this in my life now. Something that was impossible during my drinking years. And unfortunately for me, pretty difficult in my sober years too, because I was like 19 years sober before I started to figure this other personal part out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there we go. There we go. I mean, um, uh, and, the examples of what we've gotten in this journey, uh, we've gotten from other people by observation. I think that's something that we've emphasized in a lot of the episodes, that the examples of what a healthy life can bring you, we got from observing the results of sobriety in other people's lives.
Sure. Yeah. I've mentioned before the scientific method. I mean, it's evidence based and examples and trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't work. All of that. That's basic rational science.
It was not from any of their books, either, uh, you know, the traditional religious or these secular things that people try to foist on you, that you have to have this, what, some of this stuff, like, uh you know oh, I'm going to listen to that quiet voice, okay, that's going to tell me, where to go, right? There's a quiet voice within that is going to come from without to help guide me uh to the right path of one of those words they like to use, mindfulness. That's the word one of the words they like to use. Mindfulness. Fuck me. I got through it through trial and error. This didn't work, but that did, right? Particularly in relationships. If you're not somehow tuned in to the signals you're getting from your partner about what about you works and what doesn't, you could find yourself in some real trouble, couldn't you?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have fights here because we have an understanding of one another, right? The few misunderstandings we have are mostly related to, time, energy, schedules, demanding workplaces and, that sort of thing, has nothing to do with fundamental misunderstandings about who and what we are. And that comes through, you say, scientific method. We could say clarity of thought too, right? That comes from places, right? And I mean, are we doing okay in the podcast and trying to, impart ideas related to that as well? Or
I think
could we
so.
do
I mean,
better?
ultimately, no man is an island. So
No.
whatever positive effect we have, it ripples out. There's a ripple effect.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering if we should think about in future episodes uh, taking some of these recovery tropes that people try to foist on others and take them on directly. I don't think we've done a lot of that, because this touches upon a lot of stuff that people are doing in the secular part of our movement, as not movement or secular part of the recovery world as well. Um, there's a whole industry of how do you basically, there are people out there that are thinking up new and creative ways for you to control yourself, right? New and creative ways for you to have, uh, uh, shall we say, codified ideas about what constitutes your behavior, and those ideas coming out of somebody's book, right? We'll loop back to this idea of self reliance, independence, and freedom. The lessons I learned from my own actions and my own the the experience I had of the reactions from others and uh, uh, the facts as they present themselves to you over time. Um, I know I have a good relationship with my daughters, that they're 30 and 32. Um, I don't think it's probably a perfect relationship because of some things that went on due to my absences during my second marriage and the way I traveled around the world and my distance from that point of view. But now I can tell when I'm dealing with another adult if they find what I say and who I am useful, right? When you're talking to your friends, when they send you something or you're talking to them about something, they say, "Oh man, I didn't know about that, or I didn't know about this," right? Oh, and thank you for, you know, explaining this to me. And um, boy, I didn't know young people were doing that these days. I'm a little disconnected from people that are in their 20s and 30s. I guess I gotta, I don't
A
want to.
little.
Yeah, I mean, probably a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and but
The
uh,
world is moving very fast, man. I mean,
right.
I feel a little bit guilty about not keeping up. But on the other hand, I think I've earned the right to just wallow in what I have experienced and not
Right.
worry about
Well,
trying to keep up.
I mean, the trajectory of our understanding is formed by the examples, the living examples of people that we like and respect.
Sure. Yeah.
Like in my case, for example, my kids and my wife is much younger than I am, and deals with different things. They're in their 30s, she's in her middle 40s. There's a world of difference between what they're dealing with on a daily basis and what I'm dealing with. Okay. Uh, my wife was in the pain management guys, the brilliant guys' office, and she saw this equipment that was in there related to real time imaging when they guide the needle in your back and stuff like that. And I just saw her eyes getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I occasionally have to say, I'm very sorry, baby. You shouldn't be looking at this right now.
Hmm.
Some other time in the future. And conversely, I gain a lot of knowledge from her, seeing what she's doing with her very demanding career and the trajectory involved there, right? Which is a long way away from when I was moving up uh, or doing things that maybe could have benefited me financially and in other ways in the old days. So we learn from the people around us, and we also learn from our old and oldest friends. At least I do. I find it very valuable to be communicating with people I knew. I used to say 50 years ago. Very soon I'm going to have to say 60 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's very valuable to me too. And that was all possible because I had the good fortune of getting sober and coming back to my real self that was more useful to others than that self that I had in during my drinking years. I wasn't of proper use to my friends and the people close to me when I was drinking and using. And that's another thing, man. That's another example that could help propel you forward and in sobriety.
Yeah.
Um,
Not only of no use, but of a negative
oh yeah,
effect. A negative effect.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
interfering with other people's
Oh man.
development and
Oh
other
yeah.
people's lives,
Yeah.
being uh, being a negative rather than a net positive.
Right.
That really screws with your head. If you ever sober up enough to really figure out that you really fucked up last night, okay. Um, Sometimes it's not till later that you really get you really get the idea of what the nature of that game is. Um, there's another thing. When we were talking about this and we came up with the meeting notes for this episode, I'm wondering if we are uh, sort of forming ideas uh, in terms of building community and recovery for and of committed atheists without compromising with the predominant so called programs out there that require or suggest adherence to their values. How do we promote community amongst a group of people that don't want to follow instructions? Okay.
Hmm.
Are we doing that? Are we trying, in our own tiny way, are we trying to promote the idea of a community of committed atheists in recovery? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, we're not proposing any particular program. Yeah. I mean,
No.
yeah. I mean, it's
A, a community doesn't have to be based
yeah.
on a program. By community, it's like friendships based on like-mindedness
Yeah.
amongst people of similar, maybe not similar backgrounds, but of similar mindsets, right?
And focusing on the primary goal of abstinence.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
That's it,
We're
right? I mean,
going to
it's
get to that. All
instead
right.
instead of all of the other steps along the way, it's right to the root of it. It's
Well,
abstinence.
we got a few issues as atheists that sort of figure into that that we've got to step up to. And I think proudly calling ourselves this, I don't think there's many sober atheist podcast clones out there. Do you, Michael? I haven't seen any.
I haven't.
All right, just explicitly saying we're sober and we're atheists, and we're going to talk about that. All right, and you know, one of my big personal goals, if we're continuing to do this until we drop, I mean, sooner or later circumstances are going to intervene. But as we saw with the last 6 months with my little dramas related to medical stuff that was going on. You, on the other hand, recovered like a champ. I couldn't believe how you came back from your situation, but mine was a little bit.
I'm very fortunate to have made a few right decisions along the way.
Yeah, I'm positive. Yeah, I'm sure you did. But I want to try to help remove the stigma of the word atheist and the word atheism
Yeah.
from people's vocabulary and their mindsets. I was going to these recovery conventions and I heard things like, oh, those atheists, they're this way or that way, amongst people who are non believers in recovery.
Mm.
Now, in my mind, how can you be a non believer without being an atheist?
Mm.
I'm very confused by that. They say, I'm a non believer, but I'm not an atheist. I mean, that's sort of a non sequitur, isn't it?
Well, do you think by non-believer they're simply rewording or using a different vocabulary to explain their form of belief, their version of belief?
I have no version of belief.
Yeah, I'm
I
talking
have
about
no belief.
the ones who
The
claim
ones that
that,
they have.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a situation where people are genuinely fearful of leaving their old context.
Yeah.
That they want to come and put a different set of words and labels.
Yeah. Just call it something else.
On the same fucking thing, right?
Right.
That's why this thing with the 12 steps for non-believers.
Yeah. Secular AA is really just a rewording, a different way of saying that they have a faith in something.
Yeah, well, we're gonna maybe take that on a little directly at
Yeah.
some point, a little more directly at some point. But how the fuck can
I
you
mean, not to
have?
bash what other people are doing to get sober,
No, but I'm just talking about logic.
Yeah.
Logically, the 12 steps as a whole were based on the original steps that came out from the Oxford group in the 1930s that was a prayer group looking for good, orderly direction. Did you hear that term in recovery?
Right.
Good, orderly direction from God.
Yeah.
Okay. That if you focused on belief intensely enough, you would get a message from something that doesn't exist telling you what to do. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, and in case you're having trouble hearing what God has to say to you, and I think you would have a very great degree of trouble hearing something from something that doesn't exist. Oh, here's a list that we've got for you that we think they don't say it right, but it's like the fiery tablets that came down from the mountain in Israel with, Moses and the flaming tablets and the beard and all that shit coming down the mountain to, show you what the word is.
Well, the word directive has somewhat of a fascist feel to it.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I'm going to give you 12 concepts for living your life that if you follow those things,
right,
you're going to be okay. Now, we always have to back up, and I have to back up because I know we have a couple of Christians listening to us. They are pretty regular listeners, a couple of them out there, and they get great benefit from their stated belief in
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
If you do believe that stuff, and you need to have those things in your life, and you say you're getting sober as a result, that's wonderful. Okay.
Go for it.
Being delusional is better than being drunk or stoned.
There you
All
go.
right.
Bottom line.
Okay. Well, if you take the delusions too far, it could be worse than being drunk and stoned, but we're not going to go, there. We're not talking about that end of the spectrum here. But what I think we're trying to say to our committed atheist friends that may listen to us along the way is you don't need any of that stuff. I mean, if it's useful to you, I guess. But if, like me, you look at it and say, shit, I've got real literature behind me here that I need to read, okay? That's not literature, that's propaganda coming out of a essentially religious context, which I categorically rejected when I was 12 years old. So I can't, I get very frustrated. That's why I'm not going to that convention in Arizona this year, because I hear so much of that kind of stuff when I'm out there that I might get argumentative and belligerent, and I could be proving all the stereotypes of an angry old atheist, okay? Curmudgeonly,
Uh,
they say, oh, he's just a dry, drunk, unhappy old atheist. Well,
mm.
fuck you. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life, right?
He's
And
not.
come
He's
here.
not. He's not emotionally sober.
I'm not. Oh God, I love that. I'm glad you brought
I know. I had
that
to throw that in.
up.
I knew you'd like to hear
Oh fuck!
that.
Well, you know what, Michael? I have got. I should maybe go out to Arizona. Maybe they could help cure my Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a terrible, bad, like James Carville. I've got a very bad case of Trump derangement syndrome. And you know what? I don't want to get better. I want to get worse,
Yeah.
like Carville said. I love that. I won't use all the language. I use some bad language on here, but boy, Carville was incredibly profane when he was talking about that recently. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says, but particularly when it comes to democratic socialists. But yeah, he's a funny guy. I used to see him around town. Him and his wife, they used to go to lunch in a place where I would lobbyist place I would go to. I would see them around a lot. He's an interesting cat, but not to get too far off beam here. I think we're advocating for atheists, Michael. We're
Yeah.
not we're not on a soapbox preaching atheism for everybody, but I think we are advocate for people who are self-defined as atheists.
Yeah.
Are we doing a good job of that?
I just remember in my case the feelings of guilt and a sense of failure when I realized that I didn't have a faith in God. I mean, I was programmed my entire life to just automatically believe. And it was a struggle because I had to deal with the fear of being a failure because I didn't believe. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to promote is you don't it's not a failure. You don't have to feel negative about being an atheist. It's not a loss. Because that's how I was raised to believe that it was a loss. That I have told relatives, a few of my relatives who are firm traditional fundamentalist
Mm-hmm.
believers, and their first response to me when I say that I'm an atheist is, Oh, I'm sorry for you. You know, it's such a miserable place to be, isn't it?
I
so
mean,
so yeah, I want people to not feel that same guilt and fear of failure because they don't have a faith, because everything else is so faith based that we think we have to have that in order to be a normal, emotionally sober person. You know, that's
well, I
part of my plan is to get that across. That
yeah.
forget about the fear of failure and guilt for having being an atheist.
Well,
Simple.
that whole thing about that emotional sobriety shit creeping into the secular, what they call secular AA, but the secular prevailing secular community we've got that's developed out there, uh, is that it's somebody else defining
Yeah, yeah,
who is emotionally
right.
sober or not.
And what
Now,
that means, there's a directive. You have to
right,
behave.
right,
If you're
right,
behaving
right.
this way, you're not behaving right
Well, no, I
properly.
mean
Yeah.
I don't want to. We can't take it to
Well, yeah, I mean that's
obviously
bad behavior,
somebody
but
somebody out there with a gun or somebody out there committing crimes and
yeah,
other, murdering and killing or harming in other ways people. Uh, they've got something wrong with them emotionally. There's no question about that. All right. But when people that try to get to granular detail on your life as a sober person, uh, and they are going to get into granular detail about what they think you should be feeling, then I get profane myself and my old, I just, you know, very definitively say, fuck you. You are not going to define what I think, feel, or do
mhm,
as long as if I'm not harming anybody else and I'm not a hazard or a danger to those around me. Who the fuck are you to tell me anything? Right? And it's hard for us because, we don't have a manifesto, right? We're totally unaffiliated. We don't have a book of dreams to sell people.
mhm,
What we're trying to promote by being committed atheists, we're trying to promote an idea of freedom that we can't or won't define for you.
right.
We're not defining your thought or the validity of your existence, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Freedom and
we,
independent from all of those
yeah.
definitions that are programmed to so many people.
Well, I didn't get sober to live somebody else's life.
Right.
We got sober to live our own lives, and we've been pretty successful at doing that and staying clean and sober for a long, long time in terms of human lifespans. All
Right.
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 Um, yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, life is really short, and we do have to make the most out of what we have while we have it. And to my mind, if you're an atheist and you're mouthing the words of someone else or trying to somehow fit yourself into a box that somebody at a sober living convention is telling you you have to be part of,
Mhm.
you're setting yourself up for some misery. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be almost or as unhappy as you were when you left that religious program, right? And we still have people that are very prominent at those so-called sober conventions are promoting uh, cooperation with those people because, oh no, they're not religious, they're spiritual, they're not religious. Okay. All right. Uh, And they also like to promote concepts like sponsorship. Sponsorship. I had friends that I met by going to those meetings and then going to the secular meeting that developed here in Washington in the late 80s. Uh, I developed some lifelong friendships, not only with people of my own persuasion, but of people of other persuasions who I keep to this day as friends. There's nothing wrong with that, but I certainly didn't incorporate anybody else's belief to get me to a point where I could get and stay sober within the context of somebody else's
Mhm.
fucking program.
Yeah.
I never tolerated that. All right. That goes back to living somebody else's life.
Yeah.
They say, oh, if you want what we have, I love that phrase. If you want what we have. Well, what if I don't want you what you fucking have? All
Right.
right.
Right. Right.
Okay. Because there's only one, and we can focus, and I think we've done a pretty good job on the podcast of focusing on this. There's only one core word or one core thing that I think you and I strongly believe is absolutely essential, and that is the word abstinence.
Abstinence.
That's our Bible.
Yeah.
I got one Bible. I got a one-word Bible.
One word Bible. There you go.
Abstinence. Okay. All right. Because let's talk about. We talked about it a million times, but I think we're going to keep talking about abstinence until we drop dead because so many people can't get it and don't have it. You
Yeah,
saw this
well, a
very
lot of people
famous.
don't get it. We've seen the examples of people who don't get it because they're trying to do it in a certain way that has been prescribed to them by somebody else, and it doesn't really click with them. I mean, it's not a personal decision anymore. It's based on okay, which goes back to that word sponsorship. My experience with sponsorship back in my days of traditional AA and NA was that it was a middleman between the program and me and trying to get me to understand what exactly I'm supposed to say and what I'm supposed to do. This is the way you do it. And that was a person guiding me along that specific path. These are the words literally that you have to memorize. And without that, there's a sense of freedom and hope that we get because we don't have to follow somebody else's
No,
specific plan on what it is you have to say
no,
and
there,
do.
there's no plan. All right, in that
Yeah,
sense, but there is a fact. There is a fact that's been very central to me in my sobriety, going back all these years, is that an absolute commitment to abstinence is the only thing that works for 100% of the people,
yeah.
100% of the time.
And that's a proven scientific
That's an
fact.
absolute total fact.
Yeah.
If you remove the substance from your system, your life will somehow or another improve. Whether it's your physical health, your mental health, your financial health, the health of your family, or the health of everyone around you who comes in contact with you.
Or that you
Your
would simply
level of
survive.
That's right. But your level of personal toxicity is going down.
Yeah.
And I think we've done a fairly good job uh, emphasizing that and basing a lot of what we have to say on that because that simple fact seems to get lost like this incredibly
Yeah.
famous actor whose work I very much love in a lot of films I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know the guy, of course, but I have a lot of respect for him. Uh, After 7 years of sobriety, he says he's found the secret to life, which is controlled drinking.
Mhm.
Okay, enough said. I can't even encompass that remark, that I figured out a way to control my drinking. That's fucking ridiculous on its face.
Hey, I did
I
that. I did that.
Yeah, I did it too. I
you
did
know?
it for 9 months once. And then an ex-girlfriend suggested I have a tasty little bottle of wine.
Oh, yeah.
And then went on a trip, and I went places that I never ever thought I would go to. I went down incredibly rapidly when I started drinking again. All right. So I know what the deal is for me. Now, who knows? Maybe he has found the secret to control drinking because he's uh, a beautiful person, still looks great, is a great actor, and will find the secret to control drinking that, given
Mhm.
his 100 million or $200 million or whatever he's
Yeah.
worth, you know, will take him on through the rest of his life. And I wish him well. I don't wish anything happened to him. I want him to make some more good movies. Okay. And you know, on that level, I really don't care whether he's drinking or not. But don't tell me that this phrase controlled drinking won't do anything but kill people. Okay? We don't say that. We don't get people killed on the Sober Atheist podcast. We say that abstinence works for 100% of the people 100% of the time.
Yeah.
That's our only,
Yeah.
you know,
Bottom
and
line.
we're pretty strict about that, aren't we, Michael? I think we're pretty strict
I think
about
so.
I think
That's
we're
the
pretty
simplicity of it too. I mean,
Yeah, well,
I mean,
but
it's,
people don't get the idea.
you
But
know,
they do have a lot of ideas in their fucking heads about atheism and atheists. And I think we need to try to continue to promote that atheism is an affirmative, not a negative position from which a sober life can be navigated. We are navigating our lives in an affirmative manner, not a negative manner. That's why I love the idea that we say peace and love at the end of all of our podcasts, because we
yeah,
mean it.
yeah,
We mean it. All
yeah.
right. We're not, you know, and we got to get down to the other. Oh man, I see that clock running. We got to get down to the other proposition we need to tell, make sure that people understand is that we are not Bolsheviks. Okay. There was this wonderful thing that popped up on the screen the other day, and it was a picture of Roosevelt and Stalin sitting next to each other. I believe it was the Yalta conference. They're sitting next to each other. There was the one it was before and after Roosevelt died. There were two conferences, but it's Roosevelt and Stalin sitting next to each other, and the caption read, "Roosevelt's on the left, Stalin's on the right." It said the gentleman on the left is a democratic socialist. The gentleman on the right is a communist. Okay, all right, and that was perfect because Franklin D. Roosevelt was, in fact, a democratic socialist at heart. And we all know Joseph Stalin in murdering 20 million people in Ukraine through the collectivization of farms, plus all the other shit that he did, right, was a communist.
Mhm.
So we gotta tell people and gotta make sure that people understand that this atheist and these two atheists, we are definitely not Bolsheviks. I lived in Russia for a better part of 5 years, and I know what Bolsheviks did and what Bolsheviks do. They blew up churches, okay? And let's assure everybody once again, in case you're worried out there in the great listening public around the world, that these two atheists are not going to blow up any of your fucking churches, okay? We're not blowing them up, okay? We're not going to stop the little Christian children from reading about pie in the sky and ghosties in the air and like the proud progression of the saints in the Holy Roman Church and all that other stuff. We're not going to
Yeah.
do any of that. We're just going to say we at one point in our life we were drunk, today, or loaded or otherwise addicted. Today we are sober, and we're moving forward as atheists in a positive, happy way.
Yeah,
and we're not
positive
about
because it represents
yeah.
freedom and independence and hope. I mean, what's negative about that? You know?
Right. Well, there's nothing negative about it,
Yeah,
Michael.
yeah,
But we are faced, even within our own so called secular world, with all this negativity about us being atheists or angry atheists
right,
or,
right.
you know, somehow or another. No, all we want to do is tell people who have decided for themselves that they are atheists that there is a productive, happy, and positive way to proceed through this life uh, as a sober person through to the end without drinking, all
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
or drugging. Okay?
And I mean, if people want some examples of that positive effect, go to a couple of sober meetings, Zoom meetings. You can see thousands of people all over the world that are doing quite well and living a positive, sober life as atheists.
Yeah. Oh, well, we have feedback from everywhere, and we've got listeners from everywhere too. We've got listeners in places like I see that when the report comes back and I see where the thing popped up from Zimbabwe and you know places in the far out and beyond in Australia and people in South America and some of our European and Asian friends. So we know that there are people that think and feel like us who are in the recovery world or the recovery community all over the place. And we're just telling them that you don't have to believe a lot of the shit you hear. Okay. You don't have to do that. You don't have to buy in to somebody else's idea of what a sober or, oh, an emotionally sober
Right, right,
person is.
right.
Oh, shit. I love that one again. We're going to talk about our emotional sobriety one day. We'll do a whole episode on our emotional sobriety and that you can do it your way, not the way that was written down by a manic depressive in a 90-year-old book. I mean, somebody, when you look into his life, was a fucking fruitcake, all right? To use an old and outdated term. Now I'll be accused of targeting the mentally ill, okay? Yeah, Bill Wilson was a fucking fruitcake. You can quote me, all right? And yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna read the wisdom of that fruitcake and follow his advice. I'm not. I have a lot of friends that are a lot more sane and a lot more uh, productive for me to talk to in my life than that. Um, we're in good shape here, I think. I mean, have we done what we set out to do in this episode,
Yeah,
Michael?
I
You want
think
to
I
say
think we've gone back
yeah.
to our original focus and intent, and to reiterate that, I think to
Yeah,
make it would
and
have,
it's
yeah,
it's good for us, but we'll be
yeah,
moving on, and we have other episodes coming up. Our episode about sex and sobriety, our long delayed one, will be coming up, and I've got an episode about mystery and the atheist, the mysterious nature of our condition as an atheist might approach that. And I've only been working on that one for 2 years. I think it's about time for me to get it out in the public domain. And we also have maybe a couple of friends and a couple of people we haven't touched base with that we will bring on as guests. We don't do that very often, but we will probably be doing that. And okay, reaching out as best we can to our friends around the world to help with their recovery. Just to, if they want to hear, if you want to hear what we have to say, go ahead and listen. If you don't like us and you don't want to hear what we have to say, just turn us off, right? Okay,
And
it's simple.
or otherwise, send us some comments. We want to hear. We want
Correct.
to
Oh,
hear.
yeah. We
Yeah,
want to get feedback from
yeah,
our friends and admirers all over the world. And, we have come to the end of an hour here. Oh, God, we just clicked over. And it's time for us to say, as we always do,
yeah.
wish everybody a wonderful and happy, sober experience, and to go forward with the spirit of what, Michael, that word you got once again,
Well,
that word you use all the time,
hope.
hope, to go forward in the spirit of hope,
Yeah,
and to know that we are trying to go forward as best we can in the spirit of peace and love to you all.
peace and
And we
love.
will,
Peace and love.
as retro as that is,
Oh well.
that's where we're coming from. Peace and love to you all. And we'll say goodbye for now. Till next time. And it's not going to be 6 months from now. I can promise you that. We're
All
going to
right.
do better.
All right. There's hope.
Okay.
There's hope.
Let's hope. Let's hope. Let's hope. We can't. At our, we got to have hope every day when we get up, Michael. At our age, okay. So we're in good shape. We're gonna see you folks soon.
All
Take
right.
care now. We'll see you. Bye bye.